The world is on the edge of ending World War II, but no one is prepared for what comes next. A single bomber, Enola Gay, cuts through the morning sky above Hiroshima. No warning, no defense, just a blinding flash. In less than a second, an entire city is erased. 3 days later, it happens again. Another bomb. Another city, Nagasaki. 2 explosions that changed the course of human history forever. This is the story of the moment. The world entered the nuclear age, and the price humanity paid for it. In the closing months of 1945, the world was not merely witnessing the end of a war, but the collapse of an entire global order shaped by World War II, a conflict that had consumed continents, redefined political boundaries, and permanently altered the relationship between technology and violence. In Europe, the defeat of Nazi Germany had already signaled the end of one theater of destruction, yet in the Pacific, the war persisted with a different intensity, one defined not only by conventional military confrontation, but by the total mobilization of society, where Japan continued its resistance despite overwhelming material disadvantage, devastated infrastructure, and a collapsing economy that could no longer sustain prolonged warfare. While cities across the archipelago had already been reduced to fragments under sustained aerial bombardment conducted by United States. Among these bombardments, the firebombing of Tokyo stood as a defining moment of conventional warfare escalation, where incendiary raids transformed urban districts into infernos, producing casualty estimates exceeding 100,000 in a single night and leaving hundreds of thousands homeless, thereby demonstrating that even without nuclear technology, industrial-scale war had already reached apocalyptic proportions. Yet despite such devastation, Japan's political structure remained fractured, with military leadership factions committed to the concept of total resistance clashing with more moderate voices that recognized the inevitability of defeat but feared the political consequences of unconditional surrender, particularly the potential dismantling of the imperial system. Within the strategic planning of the Allies, the projected invasion of Japan's home island, an operation later associated with contingency planning under Downfall, was assessed as one of the most costly military undertakings in modern history, with casualty projections ranging from hundreds of thousands to several million, depending on the duration and intensity of resistance. These estimates included not only military personnel but also civilian populations, who were expected to be mobilized in defense operations, reflecting Japan's doctrine of nationalized warfare in its final phase. It was within this context of escalating projections and diminishing alternatives that attention turned toward a radically different technological possibility emerging from the classified research efforts of the Manhattan Project. The Manhattan Project itself represented an unprecedented convergence of scientific disciplines, industrial capacity, and military coordination, spanning multiple secret facilities across the United States and involving an estimated workforce of more than 130,000 individuals at its peak. Under the intellectual and organizational leadership of J. Robert Oppenheimer, the project sought to transform theoretical physics into operational weaponry through the principle of nuclear fission, a process that releases enormous energy by splitting atomic nuclei. This theoretical foundation was validated on July 16, 1945, during the Trinity test in the New Mexico desert, where the first detonation of an atomic device produced a luminous explosion visible across vast distances, generating shock waves that shattered windows tens of miles away and creating a mushroom cloud that rose into the stratosphere, confirming that humanity had successfully unlocked a previously unimaginable scale of destructive capability. The political implications of this breakthrough were immediate and profound. President Harry S. Truman, informed of the successful test while attending the Potsdam Conference, was confronted with a strategic decision that combined military necessity, diplomatic signaling, and moral uncertainty. Shortly thereafter, the Allied powers issued the Potsdam Declaration, demanding unconditional surrender from Japan and warning of prompt and utter destruction. Should it refuse? A phrase whose full meaning would only become clear in the days that followed, as Japanese leadership neither fully accepted nor decisively rejected the terms, maintaining ambiguity that would prove consequential. On August 6, 1945, at precisely 8:15 a.m., the city of Hiroshima became the first target of nuclear warfare, selected due to its military significance, industrial infrastructure, and relative preservation from prior bombing. Hiroshima was struck by the B-29 bomber Enola Gay, piloted by Paul Tibbets, which released a uranium-based atomic device known as Little Boy, detonating approximately 600 meters above the city. The bomb released energy equivalent to tens of thousands of tons of TNT in a fraction of a second, generating an initial flash of light, capable of causing instantaneous blindness over large distances, followed by a thermal pulse that incinerated organic matter near the hypocenter and ignited fires across the urban landscape. The resulting blast wave propagated outward at supersonic speed, collapsing buildings, overturning infrastructure, and producing a pressure differential that reduced entire districts to flattened debris fields. In the center of the explosion, temperatures reached several million degrees Celsius, causing vaporization of human bodies and materials alike, while the subsequent firestorm consumed oxygen and created conditions that prevented escape even in peripheral zones. Survivors described a landscape where shadows were burned into walls, where rivers carried countless bodies, and where the distinction between the living and the dead was often indistinguishable in the immediate aftermath. In the hours and days following the detonation, medical personnel encountered a new category of injury that defied conventional treatment. Patients who appeared uninjured began exhibiting symptoms of acute radiation exposure, including severe nausea, bleeding from mucous membranes, hair loss, and rapid immune failure as ionizing radiation disrupted cellular structures at a fundamental biological level. The long-term consequences would unfold over years, as increased cancer rates, particularly leukemia, emerged among survivors, permanently altering the epidemiological profile of the affected population. Despite the magnitude of destruction in Hiroshima, Japan's leadership did not immediately capitulate. Internal political divisions, concerns over preserving the institution of the emperor, and uncertainty regarding Allied intentions delayed a unified response, creating a critical window in which further developments would occur. On August 9, 1945, the strategic situation shifted dramatically when the Soviet Union declared war on Japan and launched a rapid military offensive into Manchuria, effectively dismantling Japan's remaining strategic options in continental Asia. Simultaneously, the United States executed a second nuclear strike. The B-29 bomber Boxcar carried a plutonium implosion type device known as Fat Man, initially intended for Kokura but redirected due to unfavorable weather conditions. The secondary target became Nagasaki, an industrial port city with significant military production facilities. At 11:02 a.m., the bomb detonated above the city, producing another massive explosion, though partially constrained by the surrounding mountainous terrain, which reduced the lateral spread of the blast, compared to Hiroshima but did not mitigate its lethality. Approximately 40,000 individuals were killed instantly in Nagasaki, with total fatalities rising significantly over time due to radiation exposure and secondary injuries. Once again, survivors faced a combination of physical devastation and long-term biological consequences that extended far beyond the immediate blast zone, reinforcing the unprecedented nature of nuclear warfare as both a military and humanitarian catastrophe. The convergence of nuclear devastation in two cities within 3 days, combined with the Soviet entry into the war, created an irreversible strategic collapse for Japan. On August 15, 1945, Emperor Hirohito delivered a recorded radio broadcast announcing acceptance of the Allied terms, marking the first time the Japanese public had ever heard the imperial voice, and signaling the effective end of hostilities in the Pacific theater. Formal surrender was later signed aboard the USS Missouri on September 2, 1945, bringing World War II to its official conclusion. However, The cessation of war did not conclude the consequences initiated by these events. The survivors, hibakusha, carried lifelong physical, psychological, and social burdens, while the global political system entered a new era defined by nuclear capability, where the emergence of the Soviet Union as a nuclear power in 1949 initiated an arms race that would define the strategic logic of the Cold War. Within this framework, nuclear weapons became not instruments of direct warfare but mechanisms of deterrence, shaping international relations through the logic of mutually assured destruction. Thus, the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki remain not only historical events, but structural turning points in human civilization, marking the transition from conventional industrial warfare to a nuclear age in which the capacity for total destruction became embedded within global power systems, ensuring that the legacy of 1945 continues to influence political, scientific, and ethical discourse to this day.